Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. So, we have a guest that is on to talk about something specific, and it's changing the landscape or has begun to change the landscape of how we get parts in HVAC. Brick and mortar buildings, the traditional brick and mortar supply house where we go in, someone behind the counter, tell them what we need, they go to the back and get it and bring it to us. That's still around, but I see it fading away to a certain extent over the next 2 decades or so, just because we have this e-commerce model that makes things super, super simple to order parts without someone in the middle. Now, when I say that, I mean, if we think about it, we're going to be speaking to Kaytee Grey from SupplyHouse.com. And she's going to tell us something that is quite awesome when it comes to the e-commerce model. And she'll tell that story. But when we pull up a part, we can get all the information on that part online. We can get, and I'm talking about on the e-commerce site that we're going to get it. So we can get the image, we can get the specs, we can get the model and serial number, we can get the safety data sheets surrounding it. We can get all of this information, instructions, PDFs, all this, maybe even videos if there's videos attached to that specific part. All of this is on the page that the part lands on. And we get all this information and all the questions are asked. And now the onus is on us. The responsibility is on us to order that part if that's what we need, instead of going through someone else and trusting their judgment on how to do this. So we're going to have this discussion with Kaytee from SupplyHouse.com. So let's get to it. This is the HVAC Know It All podcast. I'm your host, Gary McCreadie. This podcast is sponsored by Cool Air Products, Master, Cintas, and SupplyHouse.com. Go to the show notes and click on the links to check these guys out. All right, Kaytee. So we have this conversation ahead of us here, and I think it's an important one to have because there's a shift to brick and mortar, not completely, but there's a small shift from brick and mortar to like an e-commerce type of parts buying in the mechanical trades. I mean, HVAC. I mean, there's plumbing, there's electrical, there's other trades involved in this. So let's talk about how this kind of began and the shift and what you expect and some advantages of buying online and having it delivered to the job or your office or wherever that may be. Let's start with that. So where did this trend begin, do you think?
I think it began with space. I mean, you have to think e-commerce is basically an unlimited space store. You don't have to worry about, okay, I only have 1 million square feet. I can only fit 10,000 products. You really can have an unlimited assortment. And I think as, equipment gets more complicated, every air conditioner has more and more parts, we need to be able to have that unlimited assortment for our team members. And there's also a lot of information. You can click on a picture and it will tell you, the SKU number. It can tell you where to buy it. So there's a lot of information too that you can get on e-commerce that you'd have to maybe flag someone down in a store, and they may not know. They may not be the expert on that item.
When it comes to information, so like you're with Supply House, and that's evident to the people that are listening. So we can see a picture of a part online that we're looking for, so we can verify if it's okay. It looks like the right one, but we need specs. We need maybe the size of. We need a bunch of information coming out as more than just a picture. So what sort of information are we offering when a technician goes onto an e-commerce site and starts to look at a part and whether they're going to order it? What sort of information is in the background there?
Yeah, so I think there's two things there. There's searching for it, and then there's, once you find it, understanding the product and making sure it's the right one. So there's a lot of really cool technology that goes into the search function, whether you put a SKU number, whether you put a brand, whether you put maybe a name, maybe half of a SKU number, and being able to get you to that really quickly and not make you search through 1,000 different products. So once you found it, now we want to make sure it's called the product page. So you want to have every single thing you need to know about that. That could be a PDF of, the installation process. It could be a hazmat warning that maybe this has a certain chemical to it. It would have the weights and dimensions. It would have recall information, or, there's an unlimited amount of information you can put on that product page. And Supply House has done a really good job, I think, making sure we get that to the team member really quickly and easily, because they don't want to spend 20 minutes on a product page. They want to make sure that's the one I need, click, buy, I get it in a day.
It brings me back to this morning. So I was looking at, I coach a soccer team. I'm heavily involved in that, and people that listen probably know this. So I was looking at jerseys for our coaches to order, and I was on Amazon doing that because I find there's options there. Anyway, so as I'm looking, I'm reading the specs on the shirts, like what it's made out of, because I want it to be polyester, not cotton, and the picture you can't tell, right? So all this information that's online, you can scroll through it quickly and get to it fast, and consume it within a couple of minutes. Now, brick and mortar, and I'm not saying anything there's wrong with brick and mortar, because it's been a traditional way of parts buying for a while. There's a social aspect to it. You pop into the supplier, you talk to your buddy behind the counter, have a coffee, chit chat, and get on your way. But when they find a part that's maybe in the back, they're not telling you the things that you just told me. They're not telling us the safety protocol that may go along with it. They're not giving us a PDF of the instructions on how to install it, or recalls on the stuff like that. So I think that information is really important for the person that's buying it. But at the end of the day, it holds the parts buyer accountable in a way. So I've seen this before, and you give me your thought on this. I'll just explain and describe. I've gone into like brick and mortar parts place to pick parts up, and somebody's coming in with a part in a box, yelling and screaming at the guy behind the counter because he gave him the wrong thing. And the guy's like, well, I just wrote on my computer, pulled up what you asked me for, and that was it. Now, the thing is, the technician can't go onto the computer at that supply house, or the brick and mortar supply house, and start typing in, look at it, and go through the specs. He's just got to trust what he's been given as the right thing. So I've seen this conflict arise many times. But if it's the technician or someone from the office or whoever it may be, and it's their part that they need, the onus now becomes on them, and they're held accountable if they order the wrong thing, because all that information is right there for them to see. So give me your take on that, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we're expecting people in these stores to be experts when there could be 100,000 SKUs in some of these big buildings. There's no way you could have an expert on any one of those SKUs. So, we're holding an unrealistic expectation on the staffing there. I think the second point is that, yes, we're putting the onus back on the technician, but they need to trust that our data and everything is correct and easily readable and updated. So there is a little bit of pressure put on us to make sure that what they're reading is correct. It's the latest data, and we're giving them what they need and not having them sift through a bunch of things that, maybe they'll get frustrated. And, it's almost like having a know-it-all. You want it information, but you want it succinctly. And so a little bit of that onus is on us still, but I think we're able to give it to them in a better digestible way online than them going, like you said, into their local supply house shop and relying on someone to be an expert on every single part.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to ask you I like the know-it-all comment that you threw in there. We're brand heavy on the know-it-all here. Anyway, so listen, trending. There's obviously, I'm not asking for exact numbers, but like how long ago, let's start with this. How long ago did Supply House start their e-commerce business? Let's start there.
It's a little over 20 years.
Wow, that long.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I didn't realize that. I thought it was a fairly new concept, but obviously it's been a lot longer than I thought. Now, the thought process behind that was Amazon pretty popular when you guys when Supply House started? Because I'm trying to think back.
Yeah, I mean, we really started the beginning of e-commerce shopping. I remember, Josh, the CEO, saying that the first website was very rudimentary. There was no add to cart. It was basically you typed in a box one, and there was 5 steps to get it into what was a cart back then. So even 20 years ago, Amazon was pretty in its infancy compared to what it is today.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think Amazon, the rise of Amazon has, a lot of people have captured that and said, maybe we're onto something here, and we can do this with like niche parts like HVAC and plumbing and stuff like that. So the trending, do you have any idea or basic numbers of the trending on how e-commerce, I guess it would have to be around or it could be in general around how that's trending as far as the buying goes? Like, are we seeing an uptick in this over the last 20 years, year by year type thing?
Absolutely. We're seeing an uptick. And I don't have exact numbers, but you can tell because large companies now are putting huge investments into their online presence. I mean, even think about like Home Depot or Lowe's, where they were 5 years ago and where they are today. Like they have a huge focus on growing that e-commerce business. It's a more profitable way to operate too. Stores are really expensive. You think real estate, you think of, you think of the staffing needed compared to a website. It's a very different business model. And so I think every company from Ferguson, Zorro, all of them have invested a ton of money into growing the e-commerce part of, especially this niche business, because not a lot of people were doing it well.
Okay. Awesome. So I figured that you're going to say that the trend is been going up. So as far as Supply House goes, what types of products are you offering? So HVAC, obviously, other types of mechanical, like electrical, plumbing, like tell us in general what sort of products are offered through Supply House.
Yeah, we pretty much have five major categories. We have plumbing, HVAC, heating, electrical, and tools. And that's really where we shine. There's a lot of other things we could carry. There's things called consumables. Think of like shop towels and things. And we've really shied away with that. We want to be the experts in every single part you need to fix every single piece of equipment in a home, residential, or commercial property. We want to be the one stop. And that's from really popular items that we sell 1,000 units a month, or something that we may sell 2 a year, but we want to make sure that we have it for the customers so they're coming back to us.
Okay. So what about aftermarket versus OEM?
We focus on both. So we have a big selection of aftermarket because we want to give you choice. Again, we want you guys to be able to go on and choose based on price, availability, and it not just have to be, brand specific. So again, we're going to carry all the major brands, but we're also going to be able to give you a little bit of variety in the assortment. So you don't necessarily have to go that route.
Okay. Now, I heard you talking about searching via brand prior. So like, for instance, okay, so let's take it back one step. Is this for commercial and residential parts and equipment? Is it both?
It's both. The equipment part, we don't sell a ton of the actual equipment, the actual unit. We're really focused more on the parts.
Okay.
We do have a small mini split business, but we're not selling huge carrier units for our commercial business. We do water heaters and boilers, but we're more a parts e-commerce retailer versus the full units.
All right, boys and girls, I'm going to give you a link to some discount and also some training. You got to listen to this ad first, though. Running HVAC calls all day, and you know how valuable it is to have the right part and the right support when you need it. That's why pros turn to Supply House. We've got a huge selection of HVAC and refrigeration parts in stock from brands you trust, and they ship fast. The site's easy to use and packed with specs and product info so you can find what you need and get back to work quickly. Here's where it really pays. The Trade Master program. It's free to join, and members get exclusive discounts, access to pro training, videos, and free shipping nationwide across the U.S. Check it out, supplyhouse.com/TM, and use promo code HKIA5 to get 5% off your first order. That's promo code HKIA5 at Supply House. Real people, real service. Okay, so are you selling commercial parts as well as residential parts then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you are. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if somebody wanted to come in and they had a brand, Carrier, Lennox, whatever it may be, they could type in Carrier Lennox and look to see what's available through the brand name first type thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. If that's how they want to search, if they're really looking for Carrier, they could type in Carrier HVAC replacement part. They could just type in replacement part. So there's a couple different ways they can search, but a lot of people do search by brand first.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna You may not like the word Amazon when it comes to HVAC, but I want to tell you my experience because uh, this was a positive experience. So I needed a specific valve for a refrigeration unit, and I could not for the life of me find it through some suppliers I was calling, and they seemed confused about what it was. I got sent a picture and it was the wrong one. Then I get sent another picture, it was the wrong one, and now I have this middleman going through to the manufacturer trying to find it, and I'm getting the wrong information, and there's a delay because there's a middleman. And I got upset, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see what happens on Google. So I Google the part, and one of the first things that pops up was an Amazon um, link, and it was for the part I needed, and it was cheaper than what I was going to get it for somewhere else, and it was delivered like 2 days later. And I'm like, I just did this from my couch in like 2 minutes. And prior to that, I had spent an hour going back and forth with someone, wrong part, getting a headache, getting frustrated. And I found it on Amazon. Now, I'm not telling people that Amazon's the best place to buy stuff because you don't know who you're buying it from. You don't know what shape it's going to come in. Um, Good luck getting any type of warranty out of that. But it came up, it was there. I didn't need it right away. And I'm like, let's try this experiment out. And it worked well. And I had a good experience doing this through an e-commerce route. Uh, what is the feedback you're getting from your customers when they are doing this type of transaction rather than calling the supply houses around the area, and instead of doing that or driving to them, just hopping online, adding it to a cart with their credit card information and hitting buy, and it gets shipped to wherever? Is there anybody that has come forth with some reviews, experience of the process?
Yeah, you got to think about friction. So you want the least amount of friction when you go to buy something
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have a lot of time. You want to get on it, get the right product, get it to your house. And so I think Amazon has done a really good job at removing friction points. They
Mm-hmm.
remove that need to phone call. They remove that need to be put on hold. They remove that need for that person to type in and say, hold 1 second, let me go check. And so the time from when you've decided you need the product to it's in your hand is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And especially people who are out there fixing things responsible for people's well-being. No one wants to be told they won't have hot water for 5 to 7 business days. They want it now or tomorrow. And so I think that's what we've really focused on is there's a need for speed in this in the trades, and how do we remove as much friction from that process as possible, and companies that are doing that are going to win.
Yeah. No, I have this. It's not really that bold of a prediction, but I think this is the way the industry is going. Many industries are going this way. So I want to talk about the disadvantage of this, and the disadvantage is not to the person buying, because I can see all the advantages of the person buying um, upfront, like all the information, images, like SKU numbers, all that kind of stuff. It's all great to have. So I can see maybe a lot of these brick and mortar places starting to scale down, maybe having pilot uh, branches here and there, and going to this online model because, like, as you said earlier, it's less expensive to run an online model. You need like a large warehouse, and you need to just fulfill from that warehouse or several of them. The disadvantage I see is the loss of jobs when it comes to the counter people, right? Because if it's all online, those counter people don't really have much of a place to work anymore. But at the same time, it might create different jobs on the online side, people that are good with SEO and websites and all that kind of stuff, right? So is it a job loss, or are we creating jobs in a different area, right? You tell me what you think about that.
Yeah, I think that's the struggle. I think again, there's definitely jobs that are created and jobs that are going to be lost. I don't know if it's a one for one. I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing is trust. There's still a big part of the market that wants to go in and talk to someone face to face, They want to touch it.
Yeah.
They want to walk around the store. There's still like an experience there.
Hmm.
And I think people just trust that experience because they've been doing it longer.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I think e-commerce companies need to really lean into is gaining that trust and making an experience online just as interactive as it would be inside a store, and getting people to move who are more comfortable touching and feeling, coming in and trusting that they're going to get the same level of confidence online as they would in the store.
Okay. So that brings me to my next question. What do you think about a hybrid model where there are the pilot branches, so you can go and feel, touch, but there are reduced in size, reduced in capacity, reduced in the number of people working there, but the majority of stuff is purchased online. So you have, for the older school that likes to touch, feel, get in, talk, have a coffee with their buddy at the counter, and then you have most of the business online for the newer. I mean, like for my kids, I mean, they don't know, like we live in a small town. So when we go into drive an hour and we go to a larger city and they walk around a mall, that's foreign to them. It's new to them. They are used to saying, hey, I want this for, I saved up my birthday money. I want this. We go online, we order it, and it comes to the house the next day. There's like instant gratification there, and they're used to that. So as those kids at that age move into hopefully trades and stuff like that later, I think that instant gratification is going to be a continuum. It's going to be like, yeah, I want that part now. I don't want to drive an hour and a half away to see if they've got it and then it's wrong, or you know what I mean? I see it continuing. So what do you think in the interim of the hybrid model where you can go into a pilot branch that's smaller, but the majority of the business is online? Is there you think there's a need for that, or is?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think you need to look at your customer base and see where they're comfortable. And
Mhm.
how comfortable are you pushing them towards this e-commerce model? Again, you don't want to alienate your best customers. And if you have still a large percentage that are comfortable with that, then that needs to be in your business model.
Yeah, for
But I
sure.
think you're right. I think it's like a slow kind of push. I have a 13-year-old daughter too. Like I told her a sweater was going to be here in 3 days and she was like, never mind, that's too long. Like, all right, 3 days is pretty good. So I feel that energy is coming where, we won't have any choice but to get you everything same day or one day. There won't be a choice anymore.
Mhm.
So I think you just need to look at your customer base and make sure you're doing the right thing for them in the right timing and not pushing them too fast or too hard towards a business model that they're not comfortable with.
So if you guys are looking for a universal hot surface igniter ignition module, check out Copeland's White Rogers universal hot surface ignition module. It takes the place of over 325 part numbers out there and has a lot of unique features, guys. Check it out. So the way Supply House operates, let's talk about this, because obviously there's a way to do this. Do we need to have do we need to be signed up and have an account, or we can just go in as a guest and purchase something if we're on the fly and we just need something quick? Take us through that process, please, if you don't mind.
Yeah, anybody can order anything online at any time. We do have a Trade Master program that you do have to sign up for, and there's some benefits and perks there. There's some discount on the items. There's free shipping. There's dedicated customer service reps that you can have as well. So again, anyone can get online and order anything and have the same timing. If you need it in one day, we don't, make you wait longer than a tradesperson, but we do have some features and benefits for the tradespeople to make sure they feel supported, because their buying has a different level of energy to it than, someone who's, fixing the homeowner's fixing something in their house.
Mm-hmm. Now, most of my audience that listens to this is in the US, and I know that you're based in the US, and you have 4 fulfillment centers, I think, something.
We do. We have 4
Okay.
fulfillment centers. Yep.
Okay. So I have to ask, because I am in Canada and I do have a Canadian following. Is there any thoughts or plans to increase the business in north of the border at some point in time?
Yeah, I mean, we're always talking about how do we get to more customers. And I think Canada is unique that the heating market there is really, really strong. We've seen in the United States, the heating market go down, especially for radiant heat. People moving towards electric. So it's something we talk about internally all the time. I think there's just some logistics there that we need to figure out before we feel that we can go there and do it well. Because what we don't want is to go into Canada and disappoint those customers because we haven't been thoughtful with it.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, is there anything else that you think is valid or you feel is a talking point, not only to your brand, but in the e-commerce world in general when it comes to part buying?
Yeah, I think we're always thinking of the customer first. We're always thinking about what is the tradesperson doing day after day. That friction is such a good word. How do we remove as much friction so that experience of getting that part is easy? You don't have to think about it. You trust, you know you're going to get the right part. I think e-commerce companies that focus on that versus the fancy features are really the ones that are going to come out ahead in the next few years. We never forget what's important, and that's that experience for the tradespeople.
I got one more example of using e-commerce that I want to share with you. And I felt extremely bad. So I drove over an hour to go get the part because I had already made that commitment to the person that I said I was going to buy from. So I don't remember what it was, but it was this year, maybe spring, maybe summer. It wasn't that long ago. And I needed a specific part. I don't remember what it was, but I had called the supplier. They gave me a price. And I said, I'm going to look online to see if it's any cheaper. And again, this was Amazon, right? This is Amazon popped up. I mean, I don't know what it is about Amazon. They seem to be grabbing a hold of every market in the world, but again, they're not specialized and they don't have all the things that you had talked about that you guys put on your product sheets. But I found it cheaper and it was coming in a day or two, but I'd already told this guy I was going to pick it up. So I'm like, I already told him I made the commitment and I don't want to be that guy that says, sorry, I'm canceling. So I drove the hour and a bit to go get it. So I spent my time, I spent my gas, and I paid more for the product than I would have online. So I lost that day because of it. So I am definitely seeing the advantages of buying online e-commerce. Again, the disadvantage of transitioning to that 100% is some good people may lose out on work. But I think that the younger generation coming up that is good technically with computers and phones and all that I think there's jobs that are being created within these e-commerce platforms that these kids can now transition to. That's just my thought. But I wanted to give you that example of how the e-commerce came out ahead again in that example, but I bit the bullet and went and got it anyway because I didn't want to go back on my word with that specific supplier and that specific guy because he's helped me out quite a lot in the past before. So, I mean, do you have any stories like that where people are like still on the fence? They're like, I just don't know if e-commerce is the right thing just yet and haven't made the leap into it. And what are some of the pressure points or pain points to convert people to that buying?
Yeah, we have tradespeople who exclusively call to order.
Oh, really?
They won't go on the website. They will
Okay.
exclusively call. They'll call a dedicated rep and they will do the order over the phone. They just need to have that connection. They need to feel that there's a real person looking after them, making sure they're getting the right part. So, what we try to do in that instance is say, hey, of course we'll do it. We're here to serve the customer, but we'll send them a link and go, hey, if you need information on this product, though, here's a wealth of data that you can go and look at. There's PDFs and everything. If you still need our help, please call back and we'll help you. So again, we're there to serve them if they're nervous, but trying to build that trust, in the data, in the product page, pushing them really, really slowly so they don't feel like we're abandoning them. We're there to support them.
Yeah.
We definitely do. We had one last week who's been doing that for years and years with us, and he still calls and orders it over the phone with the rep.
Okay. Do you have any branches where people can walk in, or is it fully online and via phone call?
It's fully online. We do local delivery and pickup in two of our buildings in the Texas and New Jersey. So they order online, but they can come in and pick it up if they want, which, turns a day a day transit time into an hour in some instances if they live around one of our warehouses.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So one last story, and this has nothing to do with me. It was a coworker. And this is years and years and years ago. He was so I'm from the Toronto area, and he was working right in the middle of downtown Toronto. And to get out of the city in the afternoon to get to the suburb areas is like it's traffic jams and gridlock and all that kind of stuff. So he was leaving a site and got on the phone as he was leaving to order a part. And I know which manufacturer and which branch, but I'm not going to say. But anyway, he got on the phone and he was put on hold. So as he's driving for that hour and a half to get out of the city, he stayed on hold the whole time. And when he got to the parking lot and walked in, he said everybody was standing on the counter typing in their computers like this. And he's like, guys, and he showed them the phone. He's like, I've been on hold for an hour and a half. He's like, is nobody here picking up the phone? And I don't know if they had something wrong with their phone system that day or anything like that, but that is also one of the disadvantages of trying to order parts by calling, is you're going to have to wait on hold. I've called suppliers and it's like they pick up, don't even say hi. It's hold please. And then there's no personal interaction there. And then you could be on hold for God knows how long. So that is one of the other disadvantages that I think people are getting frustrated with. It happens in tech support as well. So a lot of tech support is moving to online with online videos and online information and access to manuals and stuff like that. So it's a different way to do things, but I think it gives the technician on the job site, at the end of the day, the technician on the job site is the one that needs access and the advantages and stuff like that, because they got a customer breathing down their back. The heat's not working. There's a flood in their basement, or who knows what it is. And they have to get answers and they got to get parts quickly. And I think this transition is going to be a way to help people do this, whether it be through SupplyHouse.com or other e-commerce sites.